Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today in another one of our APPI focus on ARV and learn by doing. And I always start these off with a topic. This topic today is consciousness, ARV, and a higher power. The higher power part is just part of my own personal journey, but I think it is actually rather important at both the personal level and at the level of doing better ARVing. So that's what we will talk about. The outline is pretty straightforward. I'll spend about a half an hour on consciousness, ARV, and a higher power. And then we'll do another half hour on a tutorial about ARV. And then we will be doing an actual prediction, analysis, and feedback. And I've now switched to doing roulette because I think from the standpoint of teaching, it gives us the immediate feedback. We don't have to wait for another month, which was what I was doing before. Okay, what do we mean by higher power? Let's use a definition, and it's a spirit or being, such as God, that has great power, strength, knowledge, etc., and that can affect nature and the lives of people. That's kind of an important part of this, that once you get this sense of a higher power, it can be interactive. It can do things like perhaps provide information. For many people, consciously or subconsciously, there's this issue of who is in charge. Is it your ego intellect and there is no more? And so the higher power whole concept, kind of as you go through life, I think it just becomes something you ponder more and more. I just put together this page. The idea of higher power, reconnecting, higher power for atheists and agnostics. Some people do not like to use the word God. Higher power is a little bit more neutral. Trust your higher power. Spirit gods are certainly a kind of higher power. They're giving you information you wouldn't have otherwise. Angels, they're starting to actually put this concept into regular public schools and things like that. Certainly religious schools talk about that all the time. Now let's connect this up with spirituality. Definition: the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. The whole idea of the higher power is in fact some non-physical, spiritual entity, reality, thing, which you can interact with. And all of that is really very spiritual in nature. This example of use of it I thought was quite nice. The shift in priorities allows us to embrace our spirituality in a more profound way. Now, consciousness, as probably all of you know, the theme consciousness is fundamental is a big part of what we do in APP and APPI. But that goes way back to the founders of quantum mechanics and much further back than that, indeed. But they were kind of forced into it Here's the way Schrodinger put it: consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. I regard consciousness as fundamental. This is Max Planck. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. So this is the idea of consciousness is fundamental. And consciousness, and let me try to make this as clear as I can to you, is really a spiritual type concept, idea. It's non-physical. The raw consciousness is non-physical. Something is going on in the physical brain, but the experience and the source is in fact non-physical, which makes it spiritual. Now, I have a model, and I'm not going to go into it in detail now. I've got other webinars out there on that, which is the universe of collective consciousness, UCC. It contains everything consciousness touches. So if you try to think of something which is outside of there, you thought of it, right? Consciousness touches it, it's in there. So this basically contains everything. This idea, there is, in the normal sense, no outside of that, because you imagine it, it's inside. Now, the UCC contains past, present, future, fully contains physical things, non-physical things. It includes a higher power. The idea of a higher power, we're talking about it. It's an idea. It's a non-physical, spiritual thing. Physical things are in there as well in terms of their concepts and ideas. The UCC is itself an idea. It's non-physical. Now, in addition to the higher power idea, we have God, Allah, very similar, but they have different meanings to different people. All of that would be in the UCC. What about superhuman, ruler of the universe? Lots of different words for these very, very high level spiritual kind of concepts. Now, part of the UCC model takes the physical world as we know it and experience it, but the source is the non-physical world. The source is like the UCC. So, the chair I'm sitting on is quite physical, but just like both Schrodinger and Planck say, it's the idea of consciousness being more fundamental, and they create the physical chair that I'm sitting on. That is really a wild concept, and yet that seems to be the way the universe, in fact, is. And I believe the intervening concept is the physical 0-point energy field. Again, I've spoken about that before, but let me just say that when you get down to the very, very, very small subatomic gluons, all the kinds of things that are down in the quantum mechanical world, which seems to behave, it does behave quite differently than the macro world. The 0-point energy field is down there, and it's everywhere and every time. No matter where you go, and you get very, very small, no matter what time, there's a ZPE field. That's the intermediary. Now, consciousness is in fact spiritual. Some people, that's my opinion, I certainly put it there. Some people may consider that to be controversial. I certainly don't. But now I want to get into it a little bit further. Now, the now that you're experiencing right now, this moment, is something which I don't believe we pay enough attention to. Your consciousness, the fact that you have that, actually only exists in this now. The slide you saw before is not part of your now consciousness. If you remember it, because I brought it up, the memory is in the now, but what you're conscious of happens only in the now. Actions you take happen only in the now. Now, there's awareness of this consciousness. This is a very important kind of concept. You know, we can talk about consciousness in general, and I can tell you that it's only in the now, and you can understand that. But how aware are you of that? Are you paying attention to it? The awareness of consciousness is only in the now moment. We have memories, but when we remember them, they are brought into the now. And guess what? We have future memories. That's what precognition is all about, is bringing into the present moment stuff which is going to be in a future now. There's a quote I want to share with you by a German-American Christian existentialist, philosopher, Lutheran theologian. You know, these, in virtually every spiritual tradition, religious tradition, there are people who think very deeply about these sorts of things. And he was into this idea of philosophy that embraces individual existence, freedom, and choice. And it's the view that humans define their own meaning in life and try to make rational decisions despite existing in what is often a rather irrational universe. Now, here's the quote. So this is Paul Tillich's quote. "We accept the present and do not care that it is gone in the moment that we accept it. We live in it, and it is renewed for us in every new present now moment. It is renewed. This is possible because every now moment of time reaches into the eternal. It is the eternal that stops the flux of time for us. It is the eternal now which provides us a temporal now." Very important concept. You know, we talk about these things in very many different ways, but the existence of an eternal now means that your now conscious moment is eternal. It's part of the eternal now. The future conscious moments that you're going to have are part of that eternal now, all accessible in a now moment. I just want to dwell a little bit on this idea of awareness, paying attention to your conscious moments. Otherwise, you sort of just go on automatic, and we do so many things that are that way, but if we pay more and more attention, if we become more aware of what is coming into our conscious now moments, we, I think, will just grow in many different ways, transform into a more spiritual type person at the deep spiritual level I'm talking about here. I crossed out the possible. This is a paper and a conclusion, which I think is very important. And Joe McMonagle is probably the best known public remote viewer. Ed May was a scientist from the very beginning. Um, uh, and what they concluded is the role of intention, attention, and expectation is very important in remote viewing. And this awareness and this attention is the connection here with remote viewing in ARV. And are you aware consciously of what's going on in your own mind, in your own conscious mind, paying attention to that and learning how to get better and better at picking up stuff that's coming in from the higher power through your subconscious into your conscious mind, into your conscious now. Very important. ARV precognition awareness. You don't want to be aware of all of your past now moments. That would be more than you would want to digest. But all of those now moments are, in fact, in the UCC. We have the wonderful ability of removing some of those. Now, the blue here is the physical, spiritual universe with everything in it, past, present, and future. And events, your individual nows are there, but events are there too. What we're going through now with COVID, those are events, and they're collections of now moments. Okay, so they're in here. We have the ability to ignore them, forget them, not have them in our conscious moments. So that's a good thing for our lives. So we can ignore and decrease the entanglement with our now conscious moment, and we do that all the time, of course. But you can also increase entanglement, and let's take an example which is relevant. One event which you pay a lot of attention to is your remote viewing event. Another event is your feedback event. Two different now events, both in the eternal now, though, both in the UCC, so they're connected, they're entangled. And what's marvelous is that you can increase that entanglement. And we work on techniques to do that. Many of them are individual, but certainly paying a lot of attention, being quite aware when you are with your feedback target, enjoying it, kind of lighting it up, will entangle it more and more with your remote viewing session. Now, another part of this, and this is a slide given to me by Tom McNair, who's here, and this is Ingo Swann. Ingo Swann taught him, and he was the first one, Ingo, to teach. Tom was the first one to be taught by Ingo. And I don't know if Ingo personally brought in a prayer to a God, a higher power, but this is from Tom. By him, all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, both seen and unseen. All things were created by him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together, and he is all-knowing. Before Tom starts any of his remote viewing sessions, he does something like this, basically clearing his mind and asking for help. This was something which was very important to sort of my journey. I now do this, different words, same ideas, um, and it's the all-knowing. I will go make contact with a higher being, um, and one who is all-knowing, and ask that entity to provide information to me on my remote viewing session. Now, here's an example of what Tom taught me and others using the ideogram approach, ideogram, and then A, which is a feeling motion, and B, something that just pops, usually a noun of some sort. In a moment, you'll actually understand why I'm showing this to you. I am not bragging. I will say this is one of my really good sessions, as I think you can see here. I just captured so much of this. A life form, green, open, musty, liquid. I've got water, murky. And then, of course, the thing which nailed it, and how it came in, why it came into my conscious now moment, but it did. And my job, my ego, and my ego's only job was to get what came into my conscious moment from a higher power, and get it on the piece of paper. And that's what I did here. It took 9 minutes, and I think you'll agree it's an excellent session. Now, I actually did quite a few of these. During Tom's day, and Russell Targ, I don't know, I hope some of you were part of the talk we did with Russell Targ, but he discussed the fact that they were basically 100% accurate in the early days of SRI. And Russ even got 9 straight hits out of 9, his team, when they invested in the silver market using ARV. And then it fell apart. But I, in working with Tom, for better or worse, I'm now working towards 100%. And I was getting such good sessions here. I was feeling really darn good about this. Like, oh my God, this is going to work. I think my ego got involved, and I want to show you what it did. And this is pretty general what I'm talking about now. You veterans, you old bees know what this chart is, but let me explain it for the newbies. This is the hit rate, and this is the session number. So by session 10, and the red curve is cumulative, just totals up the total number of hits up to this session number, and divides it by the hits plus misses. Passes are ignored. So it's a standard kind of hit rate. Notice I was 80%. Maybe feeling too good, I don't know. But the red curve goes like this, and it goes out here, and it's now at 54.7%. The blue curve is the 10-day moving average. I frankly think that's the most important if you're going to be watching yourself. But the green is the 25-day moving average. And I use that as the best estimate of what maybe the probability is of the next prediction, which I'm trying to get up to near 100%. Tom comes into my life, like right in here someplace. I just didn't go back and find out exactly. But I know you can see the 10-day moving average got up to 80%. I got 8 of my previous 10 predictions correct, had only 2 misses. My hypothesis is that at the ego level and maybe other levels, I was thinking I was hot shit and maybe too much. and I go down, I drop. I see this in so many of our viewers, including our precog pros, and I hope all of you will get over whatever stops us for going much higher. Had a person up to 100% drop down. And the drop downs for me look like they typically go down to 40%. I am meditating on making that not happen this time. Now I'm down to 60% and hoping to go up. But I'm sharing this with you because all of us in this business where we know we're not perfect. Remember, the SRI days, they never thought that way. And I think that's a key. They simply knew they could do it. Once Mrs. got introduced into the consciousness of us, that's something now you have to deal with because that is now a possibility. I don't think Tom, in fact, he tells us that he was 100% back in those early SRI days. He just never thought about it any other way. He would go into it and say, I can't do this, do his asking for help, and then he would get it right every time. Came back like 20 years later with Ingo, did it again and got it right. I and all of you are struggling to get back to that. And struggle is not the right word. I think it's a journey, and we're learning by going through that journey. Now, we do these asking for help from a higher power. God is fine. And God answers our prayers, but he doesn't always answer it in your way, the way you would like. Like I'd like to be 100% already. But actually, as I meditate on this, I realize that a journey to get there is probably actually a good idea. But here's another way of saying this that I like that I wanted to share with you. God answers in three ways. He says yes and gives you what you want. He says no and gives you something better. This is the right attitude. And he says wait and gives you the best. We are part of a bigger plan. And I believe that attitude is really a very positive one for life in general and certainly for ARV. Okay, I want to get back to the bigger picture and then I'm done. This idea of the universe, of collective consciousness, everything consciousness touches is in there. Hard to imagine anything outside because once you imagine it, it's inside. You are in here. The black is like a fuzzy boundary. You're connected to everything else, but what you define as you, the meaning you give to things inside the UCC, inside the universal collective consciousness, they always have fuzziness and they connect up with everything else, but certainly not directly. But this is you here, connected very nicely to everything. And in fact, the idea of the UCC with the fuzzy boundary, because the UCC itself is got meaning only because we give it meaning and define it and have a sense of what it is. Skip Atwater, he was the one who initiated and headed the ARV Army unit, said, some say that we pass from spirit into the physical at birth and conversely pass from the physical world into the spirit at death. I say that we never pass from spirit. We are always part of this eternal now, in some way, even after our physical death. Very spiritual, very wonderful kind of statement. Now I want to show you what is a big transformation for me. I know I'm connected to God, all inside the UCC. I now want to do something I have never done before, and yet to me it makes sense, and I'm going to try to see if I can make this sense to you. See God here? Lowercase makes it actually deeper, more significant. It's outside the UCC, except I told you there can't be anything outside the UCC. But as I'm sort of getting into this stuff more and more, I believe that it's a little bit, I don't know if obnoxious is the right word, but to believe that this is the ultimate model. I used to think the UCC, maybe that's what God is. But there's something called Gödel's incomplete theorems. And I think that's why I can now comfortably put this outside the UCC. It's something bigger, grander. Let me just tell you a little bit about this theorem. It's two theorems together, and it goes way back to 1931. It was revolutionary in its time and quite controversial, and I'll show you why. Mathematicians thought that everything that is true has a mathematical proof. A system that has this property is called complete. So you have a system, and you should be able to prove everything within that system. One that does not have that capability is called incomplete. Okay, so these mathematical ideas should not have contradictions. This means they should not be true and false at the same time. That all seems so logical, right? We do that. A versus not A, it's one or the other. These systems are based now on axioms, assumptions, things that you believe. In mathematics, they're clear axioms that are taken to be true. But the UCC, all ideas and systems have that. Built into them are the deepest fundamental tenets, axioms, if you will, that form their basis. Well, this is what Gödel proved. Any non-trivial system, and I will put the UCC in that category, is either incomplete or inconsistent. He proved that. He proved there will always be questions that cannot be answered using a certain set of axioms. You set up this system, and there'll be questions that cannot be answered. You don't know if it's true or false. It's true and false. And you cannot prove that a system of axioms is consistent unless you use, and this is the key, a different set of axioms, a different set of assumptions. And that's where I feel comfortable putting God now. Okay. Each of us are here. This is in this eternal now, which I discussed, at the intersection of the past and future, and there is nowhere else you can be. You have your now moments. In the physical world, this is the way it works. Here's another quote. All that is exists within consciousness, including all concepts of space and time, including all remembrances of so-called history, remembrances of the future, I would add. Space and time exist within you, conscious awareness. You do not exist within them. You are the eternal now. And I hope that ties all of this together. And, all we can use are words. I love the people who try to capture all of this with these wonderful diagrams, sketches, pictures. Okay, Are there any questions or comments about that? Um, Thank you, Marshall. I'm just reading this now. Oh, okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this that any of you?
Marty, can you hear me? It's Krista.
Yes, yes, I can. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to go back to what you said about expectation and intention.
Yes, that's
because with all the exercises I've done so far, and I'm a newbie, with all the exercises I've done so far, I have tried to become neutral. Now, I am going to add a prayer to my slow down process, and I like that. But you did say expectation, intention, and something else.
Expectation.
And I want you to expand on that, because
Okay.
if we really, tonight I'm going to do something myself, or tomorrow I might have a picture that I put in an envelope and I do an exercise. But I mean, what should I expect? What should I intend? That's really what I want to know.
Okay, let me expand. Attention, I think we spent a lot of time on, and in many ways, it's sort of strange, but in my opinion, in many ways, it may be the most important, because it's being aware of what's going on inside you. Now, that includes, when you go into your session, being aware of what your intention is. So the intention should be something like, my higher power is going to provide information about target XXXXX, what's in the envelope, what I'm going to see as my feedback session. Become aware and reinforce that intention. So you take a little time to do that, put a little energy into that. Also, expectation. Get into a place where you expect to do what you intend. And it's a different state of mind. Expectation, what's your feeling about whether or not the sun's going to come up tomorrow? It's just so confident you practically don't think about it. It's very strange. So I'm telling you to feel confident, but this may be where the neutrality that you mentioned comes in. You're so confident you don't have to pay attention to it, but you're paying attention to it in that sense. And you want to get into that kind of state. And the expectation state is not something you do just when you're starting out your remote viewing. This is something you build on all the time. I expect to be 100% remote viewer. It took me a long time to say that. I used to say 80%. One of the key tenets of remote viewing, and I believe it was Ingo Swann who came up with this, is the viewer is in charge. So, I've been very clear to give you my perspective on this, and you need to come up and make real for you your perspective. So I hope that answers your question. Bring in positive intention, pay a lot of attention to what's going on in your mind, and always work on building high confidence levels, high expectation that you will be very good at this. And you get to experience this when, as you said, hey, sometimes you don't have hits. That's the time to turn it into a positive somehow and say, I know this is just going to get better and better, and this is a learning experience.
Thank you.
Does that help? Okay, so I hope I answered that.
Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you. I couldn't get off on mute, but thank you very much.
Oh,
Yes, it helped.
okay, good. Thank you. Now, Tom put in a comment, um, and let me clarify what he said. He said, attention of the viewer should be focused on structure. Now, the ego, intellectual part should be focused on structure. You're putting things down on a sheet of paper that come to you, but they come to you through this higher power, through your subconscious. They come to you into your conscious now moment. When I did that session, I was aware of stuff coming up. I had the slightest idea where or why, nor did I care. All I wanted to do was to get it on the sheet of paper. But I was very aware as it came into my conscious moment. So I hope that, for me anyway, that's the difference between when Tom says it's all about staying on structure, absolutely, but it's also being aware of the stuff coming up through your subconscious, in my opinion. Do you have any area leaders or a point of view about the individuals having divine plan to follow? I don't know anyone like that. No, I'd have to say I don't. You said, do you? So I don't. I am the closest I have one is that as we get closer and closer to reaching 100%, and as more and more of us do that, I believe the divine plan is to go through a consciousness paradigm shift where all the things that those of us in this field and others know are true will become a assumed part of society. That would be a consciousness paradigm shift, I think, greater than any of the previous ones. And I never quite connected it with the divine plan until just now, but that is what I believe is the divine plan and the direction we're headed. Okay, I thought that I was confusing things when I prayed in the spirit, praying in tongues when I was going into my session. I also sought out my younger self, who I've had dealings with to remedy past issues. Now, since I've had extraordinary success, I will now relax more and realign myself with the eternal self, serving oneself. Okay, excellent, Marshall. And relaxing with this has got to be good because that's part of feeling so confident and expectations to get there. Fair enough. Let's move on and go to what ARV is all about. And I want to just focus on the fact that we're a group here. We have groups that do group predictions. But ultimately, this is a personal journey. And in the context of what the segment we just finished, it's a personal journey in many ways with your relationship to a higher power, to a God, to a eternal self, to whatever you want to call this thing, which is much grander than your ego, intellect, which is terrific. I don't ever want to take anything away from that. But there is something which is quite different than that, that can connect with the future, plus do all kinds of other things. So pay attention to what this grander thing is giving you. And I see the sub as an intermediary. I've heard some people talk about the sub as being the eternal higher self. So, the words get murky here, but it's the feelings of it all and the sense of it all that's most important, I believe. Be optimistic, be grateful, loving, enjoy. Just enjoy all of this. And it is about self-actualization, self-realization, Um, I love this. What is the meaning of life? All of us who are on our various journeys and doing that sort of thing. And the guru, I don't know, the computers are down. This is something you have to do. It take really self-responsibility. And, we're always looking for someone else to give us all the answers. The answers have to come, I believe, from your inner self. Our duty as men and women is to proceed as if limits to our ability did not exist. We are collaborators in creation. And that is so true. I don't want to get into it in any detail, but it just pops so strongly in my mind now. There's this debate about predetermination. How can you predict the future if things aren't completely determined? And the answer to that is at this higher level. It's a dimension outside the UCC where, in fact, that has permitted us in the now to create and to know the future, which is a new creation point. And it's something which our intellects, I don't think, can understand. And yet it's very clear to me that that's the way it is. We are collaborators. We have free will, which we exercise, guess when? In our now moments. That's the only time you can exercise your free will. Okay, ARV in time starts with a remote viewing session. This is a remote viewing session like any other. There is one target. Most remote viewing sessions have tasking similar to this. Describe and sketch your target. Now, there is often something that's called a coordinate. I like target reference number, but just to identify it so you can identify the target with that same identifying coordinate. In fact, Tom McNair used to use coordinates on the planet. They were real coordinates. That's where the term. But then they started using, as others did, all kinds of other kinds of targets, and they would give letters, numbers to it, sometimes even just a date and time. But the point is, describe and sketch your feedback target. And we do feedback target. In the old days, sometimes they would not get feedback, but the job was to describe and sketch a target. An ARV, we always get a feedback target. And there's only one, just like your telephone number. Somebody dials a number and they expect to get your home or your mobile phone, right? It's a unique number. We use 6-digit numbers associated with a unique target. That's what remote viewing is all about, period. So it is a standard remote viewing session. Now, later in time, in ARV, you will always get feedback. So here we are later in time, the next day, next week, you're going to see a feedback with that same target reference number. But notice you have the real target now. This is what you were to describe. So you have the truth point. Sort of nice. You have the absolute truth point here, period. The one and only target. And you have your transcript. So no matter what happens, this is your opportunity to learn something, to pay attention to it. And you do this over and over and over again, and you begin to learn more and more and more. Okay, now, that's standard remote viewing. We're doing associative remote viewing. What does that associative term mean? The associative term is all about this analysis. And we are doing associations which are involved in investment. People looking at us might call it gambling. I do like to use the word make an investment choice, because I believe once you get up to a steady 60% or more, 65% or more, you're now making an investment on what will be a binary. We're making a binary prediction here. But if you're at the level of 60, 65%, it's no longer a gamble. It is indeed an investment. So that's why I like to use that term. But again, you shouldn't do this if you're just really very close to chance levels. And of course, all of us are working to get well over that. Now, we're going to be doing roulette. And in roulette, the binary choices are red and black, but they also have zero. We will be doing European, where there's only a zero and not a double zero. And so we just will associate that with red. And if we make our investment and the prediction is red, we'll also put something on zero. Now, so what does that mean? We're going to be and want to make an investment. There are two possible choices. And guess what? We're going to have two possible targets. One is associated with red and zero. I bet you can guess what the other one is associated with. It's associated with black. Okay? So this is the association. Now, you're only going to see one target here. It's going to be one or the other of these. This is the truth point. Whichever target you see here tells us what happened here. If it's the one associated with red, that's because red came up here. If it's the black target, the one associated with black that you see here, that's because black came up. You will always see what is the actual truth outcome, period. That's ARV. And that's the association. Two possible targets, but only one real target, period. And that's what you do when you start with your remote viewing. Now, to make this useful, and the reason we're doing it is so that we can place an investment after our analysis, and ultimately you put down a judgment. The result of your analysis is indeed a judgment of whether it's red or zero or black, and then we can invest on that in between. If you do invest, if you do wager, really do this in a very wise way, realizing that if you've got this edge, it plays itself out over the long term, always, period, as long as you keep that edge. And don't dip. It's the dipping that is the big issue that a lot of us are facing. And get rich slowly. You know, as you're doing this, and this may be what the higher power is telling many of us, you keep improving and deepening yourself as you're doing this. And if you've got this edge, you don't have to rush it. You don't want to be like one of the people who wins $100 million lottery and goes ahead, and a year or two later, they're back in their home, having nothing much to show for it. And we see that quite often because they haven't accommodated to getting the wealth. And in fact, I think it's very important as you get wealthier, one of the key things with wealth is sharing. Okay, so ARV, what we're doing is we're doing it in a purposeful fashion, knowing the outcome sometime in the future. But we now know about this eternal now, which means it is available to us when we do our remote viewing session. Our targets are photo sites. Some people have used actual physical objects in a hidden box. Others have actually gone out to physical sites. We use photo sites, which are photographs of physical sites taken at a specific time. So the whole idea of photo site is the information on a photograph at the time the photograph was taken. Now, your consciousness is expected to gather information from that target photo, okay, the one you're going to see at feedback time. And of course, you can get color, shapes, but you can get a lot more than that. You can get sounds, etc. Most of them can be inferred from the picture, and those are the ones you're really interested in. But optionally, a lot of people like to go because they're doing remote viewing in other contexts where you can move your consciousness to that physical site at the time the photo was taken. But in both cases, your task is to describe and or sketch what can be obviously verified from the photo so that your analyst can do a good analyst job. I don't want to know, and the analyst doesn't want to know, what's 100 yards away from what's in the photo. Now, what you get are what I like to call first impression gestalts. If you were shown a picture like this without the words and letters on it, and you had just shown it really quickly, and they've done experiments like this, millisecond kind of time frames, you tend to pick up the big picture stuff like water, maybe structure. I might even pick up 3 that you get a sense that they're separate things. Okay, those are the first impression gestalts. But you also get, as you stay with it a little more and as you listen more to your higher power, you will get more details about visual, sound, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, emotions, ideas about things. All of this comes up and can be delivered to you through your nervous system. This is the way the information is delivered from, say, the higher power to the subconscious through your nervous system into I'm sure it affects the physical brain, but the mind picks up the conscious now moment information. And that's what you pay attention to and put down on a piece of paper. The word obviously, verified from the photo, gets into something I'm going to be talking more about later as we do our prediction, and that's harsh analysis with gestalts. This picture has no people in it. Now, it's a reasonable inference that there are people there. But in our analysis, when we do matches, if you were to say a person, we'd give it only half credit. So that's kind of what we mean by harsh. That would be an example of that. Obviously, if you said motion, if you picked up the colors, even if you said a sound, I hear a loud sound, all of that can be inferred directly from this picture. Okay, and then finally, this is your psychic self now who's doing all this ARV work, and practice, practice, practice like a doctor or a shaman. Hopefully the doctors you go to keep learning about things, and all the good doctors do. Shamans keep learning. And that's just part of this whole process that we're involved in. Joe McMonagle did 6 predictions a week. And if he didn't, and he had a whole bunch of envelopes where he gave himself tasking if he wasn't working for somebody else, which he was a lot of the time. But, you know, it was use it or lose it was his philosophy, at least. Now, the primary benefit of ARV and applying precognition, in my opinion, and this just makes so much sense, I hope you'll integrate this in you, is creating a strong working relationship with your subconscious mind, higher self, the matrix, the UCC, God, whatever you want to call these non-physical aspects of you in the universe. Questions, comments on that? Let me see if anybody. Okay, let's see. Beecher said, I feel like I get pulled to another realm and have a hard time grounding myself after I sometimes get headaches. And that's not uncommon. I was with Mel Riley many years ago, and he was doing a session with another fellow. Now, this was a longer session, not an ARV session, but they came out and they were like dazed. You go into a different place. In ARV, it shouldn't be so bad because these sessions usually are relatively quick, like 10 minutes or less. And I don't have any suggestions. As far as I know, there's no negative impact, just sort of relax, stretch a little bit, and presumably it goes away. If the headaches remain, I really don't know what to tell you. What I would do is ask your higher self. Now, I've got techniques which get rid of headaches, which is basically to focus on them and look at it and what color is it, what size is it. As you pay more and more attention to it, it tends to dissolve. You know, as you go into it again, set your intention for it to dissolve. And you know, with a headache, that happens automatically. As soon as you've got it, your intention was set to get rid of it. So I hope that helps, Beecher. I'm new to this. Does someone else do the analysis and judgment, or does the remote viewer do it? Okay, very good question. And the analysis is done in a different mindset, right? It's mostly intellectual. And it can be done by the viewer. We call that self-analysis. It can be done by an independent person. Actually, as we do the prediction, I'll show you where that distinction can be made. I would say it's still debatable about which is, quote, better. A lot of people like self-analysis because they put things down on the piece of paper that are kind of personal to them, that only they would know how to interpret, they say. On the other hand, the people who like self-analysis don't like seeing the other alternate possible target, the one that isn't actualized, the one that is not the real target. So there are 2 points of view. I know a lot of people who get a miss or two say, you know what, that must be the reason, and they then go ahead and do find a buddy if they can to be their analyst. Unfortunately, they can still describe, I don't even want to say it, but I started, so I have to finish. And you guys who have been out there, some of you know this. Consciousness has access to everything. Everything is connected. So even though they had a independent analyst, sometimes, again, I think sometimes we make too much out of displacement, but sometimes they will give a really good description of the non-target, the possible target that does not turn out to be the target. And they'll get a very good description of it. It's another demonstration about how consciousness has access essentially to everything. Okay. Let's see. Thank you. I need to get used to it, right? Yeah, keep loving it. Loving it is wonderful. Hey, the more love we can feel, the better. I'm still wondering about the notion of just one RV session a day. I heard before that one a day was it, but then anyone can do a good session in 26 minutes. Okay. I do believe one a day is the best pace. I have some people now that are doing 2 a day on the same prediction for the same financial instrument. I haven't yet seen any of them do any better than 1 a day. Some are doing worse, but I don't know if that's them or whatever. I think experimentation here may be the only way. My recommendation, which might change based on your experience or others, is that 1 a day is best. It gets the practice, and yet now you're doing 2, or you're asking, why, you don't trust your first prediction? So, okay. Very good. Other questions? The chat box works, or you can actually turn on your mic. Okay, let's move forward and let's do it. So we'll do a new prediction. The first thing I want to ask, are there any newbies to this webinar workshop group? This is one of our groups, but this one only meets once a month. And anybody who's not in it, I want to send a tasking to them for today's prediction. Okay, very good. Would you put in the chat box your, okay, wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy we've got some newbies. You know, that's one of my big goals, is to bring in as many people as possible into this psychic world. But put it in the chat box so I can copy and paste it and make you a member of this group. Okay, very good. So let me, Marty, okay, so let me start from the top here with Plucky. And, well, that's okay. I can put you in. Again, it'll tell us whether you've been in or not. So there's Varsity Witch. That's so clever. I love the names you guys give yourselves. Okay. Let's see. Like mine is so clever. Marty. There. So that was K-A. There you go.
You know, Marty, I was listening to an old session of Jeffrey Mishlove.
Yep,
And somebody mentioned your name. And Jeffrey Mishlove said, "Oh, I know Marty."
In fact, Jeff is going to be interviewing me tomorrow.
Excellent. Excellent. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, he publishes them all. He's got the greatest set of people around. Okay, so I think that's right. Let's see what happens now. You are a member of the webinar workshop group. I am not a robot. There you go. Okay, I'll add you, Marshall. Okay, so we got 7 people were added. And let me now add Marshall. All of you that were just added should get an email. So you go look at your email. I wanted to. I want to manage members. And I want to do direct add. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. And Marshall, you should be getting an email now too. Fair enough. So you guys are all members. Let me go back now to the slide. Now, the people who are already in received, yeah, I guess I have it there, received this email. And this is how it all starts. We've made the, what should I say, the mechanical part of the protocol really as simple as we could make it, so that your focus is on the remote viewing and the feedback sessions and analysis. And so you can see here, this is the group webinar workshop. We have like 12 other groups, 10 financial, a couple of sports groups. But they'll all look like this. So what you're doing here, you'll be able to do for any of the other groups, should you want to do that. And just let me know if you want to get put in other groups. And then, so there's a name. The transcripts are due July 1st. European Roulette is the event. So when I set this up, I put that in. And then I've just put the date. Usually there are times here. For the financials, the actual trade is 6:30. The transcripts are due at 6 in the morning Pacific time. Then all you really have to do is click here. Now, for those of you who are new, you don't have that link. The rest of you can find your email and do it, or I will put this in the chat box. So by clicking on that, you go to this place, which, let me put this in the chat box to everyone. Okay. So if you click on that, you'll go to a page just like this, just like I did. And you need to put in your email address, because each of you will get your unique target reference number and your unique target. So that will be unique to each of you. And then we click here, and this would be my coordinate. When each of you do it, you'll have your own coordinate, which you should write down. And why don't you write it down on the top left of a blank sheet of paper, and that'll become your transcript. Okay. So that's it. You now have your target reference number. So my next slide is, so you should be right here with a coordinate. Now, this is a key page, so leave that page open, though you can always go back to it just like you got to it the first time, but we're going to get back to it later because what we're going to do now is an RV session. All you need is the target reference number or coordinate to do your session because it's the link with the reality of the one feedback target associated with that target reference number. You know, I say it over and over again, but you got to get that down really deep with you. Okay. And some of you might already be starting, and that's fine. Though I'm going to be taking you through just a little more. Actually, some of you have seen this approach that Tom does with the ideograms. You saw it in my example. The viewer is in charge. I would say right now, just put your name and date and the time. And webinar workshop. I think it's good to put the group here too. And then begin with a ideogram. Some people use pictograms, put your coordinate down. And I'm going to start you off with a 10-minute segment. But right now, you know, you might get yourself comfortable. Joe McMonagle has said cool down is very important. And it's interesting. Tom's cool down is the silent prayer to a higher power, to God, asking for assistance from the person that has all the info. Joe thinks however you do it, it's like he said 75% of doing RV because you need to be connected with this deeper part of yourself that is giving you the information. So what I'll turn on now for 10 minutes is a hemisync binaural beat background. Different people like to use different things. Use roughly maybe 1 to 3 minutes. Some people just like to focus on their breath to get rid of the day-to-day stuff that comes up and acknowledge that you're gathering information from your sub through a higher power. Set aside your ego, intellectual self, except for putting down on the piece of paper what you get from your higher power through your subconscious. So that's the only job of the ego. The narrator will come on at about 2 minutes to remind you to turn inward, and I'll tell you when there's a minute left. And so unless there are questions, I'm going to start now. I will start now, and if you have questions, put it into the chat box.
Hey, Marty, the sound isn't working. The audio isn't working.
First, let go of your physical senses, the body, and turn inward.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Okay, time to come back to your normal waking state. Why don't you stretch a little bit? Did any of you get the sound or not? I know one person didn't, and that's happened before. But actually, different people use different kinds of background sound. So some of them even like to use loud sounds because the information just comes in like a different dimension. Okay, you guys back with me? At the bottom of your transcript, I always recommend writing either end or EOS for end of session. And that lets the ego intellect know it's done, as well as the subconscious. Okay, so you now have a transcript. The next step is to do the analysis, and we'll be making a prediction for a roulette spin. So what is the analysis all about? Well, we want to know, and you want to know, whether or not your transcript is a good match to photosite A or photosite B, the two binary possibilities. And we don't know which one's red or black, and it doesn't matter. It's all with the photo sites. So remember I said, keep this page handy. You want to go back to it now and browse for the transcript, which you will copy to your computer. It's most of us in this day and age have either smartphones or scanners, or one way to get a copy of that transcript onto your computer and just put it in a place where you will browse for it. And so let's see. I'm just having a hard time getting rid of it. There we go. Okay. So this was, okay, you guys with me? You're all real quiet. Oops, and I lost my chat box.
We are here just trying to get this done.
Okay, but you understand what needs to be done.
Yes.
Okay. And let me now, what is that page? Right, so the tasking page gave you the coordinate, and I'll go through it, but I use what I call a dummy transcript, just because I do a lot of teaching without doing a transcript. But once you get your name, your transcript name in here, all you do is click submit. And what I'll now show you is what will happen once you do that. So once you do that, you will actually see the first possible target, which we call photo site A, and then a bunch of element stuff under that. And I want you to get to that point, and then I'll explain to you the recommended approach for analysis. Okay. Okay, so very good. I see several of you. Okay, that's fine, Marshall. You'll be learning enough here to go ahead and do it as a member of a group after this. So what you have is photo site A, some of you. Michelle is having trouble doing it. But what, Michelle, is your problem not knowing how to get the transcript into your computer so that you can upload it? Why don't you turn on your mic so we can talk? Okay. Okay, and Jade is scanning. Good. Okay, I will show you. Do you remember going to this page where you got your coordinate? And if not, you can go back to the tasking email and that's it. Go ahead, Alan, ask your question. We need to multitask here. And you can turn on your mic or put it in the chat box. Okay, but Michelle, once you find that page, the key is going to browse your computer and then, you know, browse like that and just find the document. And once you do that, it'll show up in here and you hit submit and then we'll go forward. Alan, did you have a question? Okay, well, I'm going to move forward. I know a lot of you are ready.
Well, in my case, I'm very sure that I've got everything for site number A.
Okay, well, you've already looked at both, but I still want you to go through the procedure so we can get a confidence ranking. So let me talk about that now.
Okay.
These things under here have to do with this HAG, and it'll take care of and really organize a way to do analysis. And I want to get to that. Ultimately, you put in just a confidence ranking from 0 to 7 for photosite A and 0 to 7 for photosite B. And what you hope for is a high number on one and a low number on the other, and then it becomes clear what your prediction is based on if it's associated with red or black. Now, I'm going to show you the TARG confidence approach kind of quickly, just to show you that he was the one many, many years ago when he was at Stanford Research Institute. They came up with a word version for the CRs, the confidence rankings. And 0, 1, and 2 go from no correspondence to what you would think would be random. I mean, you know, if you took your transcript and had somebody choose an arbitrary picture for you, not your target, an arbitrary, but you'd still probably get some matches. But there wouldn't be very many. By the time you get to a confidence ranking of 3, you say, you know what, I think I might have a psychic element here. You know, I think I might have, but just on the margin. 4, we get good correspondence with several matchable elements and still some incorrect information. In app, we consider 3.5 to be wagerable. We want to be over the minimum. And then 5 is really good. That's unambiguous, unique information. There's just some stuff in there that is just so right on, you know you got it in a psychic fashion. And yeah, there's still some incorrect information. And then 6 and 7 are where, I'm not sure I mentioned analytical overlay, but when the right brain gets involved, that's sort of uncertain information, but sometimes it's right on. So that's a 6 or 7. This is the approach we like with Tom. Notice here he had this AOL and he took a break. He guessed that it was a beach scene. That came from his intellectual brain part, ego. But notice he starts with the coordinate. And he's done a whole session here. I'm not going to go over the session. The key here, when we're doing analysis, and you should each do this on your transcript, is to number every element, and that includes the ideogram. You know, sometimes ideograms, here's maybe an example of one, and then what he wrote was feeling motion, rising, climbing, and then he got land out of that. All of that came in, you know, through his subconscious into his conscious mind. But notice he numbered every single element here, and one number on the summary. The summary usually contains things that came before, but sometimes there's something new. So you should do that on your transcript. And we used to have a sheet like this where you would do each of these elements. You see the element numbers went up to 27, but now this is all automated. But the idea is just that. But this is all automated. And let me just say a little bit more about it, and then you can do your analysis. Some of you are probably doing it already. But HAG, for your newbies, stands for Harsh Analysis with Gestalts. And Russ Targ started with the 0 to 7 system, which we showed you already. But then Joe McMonagle added the very important concept of Gestalts being worth half of the score of the analysis. Half. He said from all of his experience that the Gestalts, getting the big picture of what's going on at the site, is really very important. If you don't have that, even though you might have matches, it's just not worth as much. And then Tom comes along with Harsh, but in a nice way. And he's absolutely right. When people tended to want to give them too much credit, and you just have to find this balance. You know, it's not exact, but it needs to be reasonably associated with the word and the picture. So, and then he also changed some of the arithmetic, which is automated if you use Harsh. Now, Harsh definition is ungentle and unpleasant. So be especially rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and discerning when assessing the correlation of data elements to possible target site A. Those are his words, wonderful words, but you get the idea. And let's say you do photo site A and it's great. Be really careful to not allow confirmation bias to creep in. When you do photo site B, you have to do it totally independently. Still rigorous, assiduous, judicious, and all that, but totally independently. Sometimes they'll both be good matches. Try to avoid that, of course, but that's it. Now, what about Gestalts? The Gestalts are a big part of this, and we call Gestalts first impression Gestalts. They're figs. This is the thing you would get when you first glance at it, the major Gestalts of the site. Examples are things like water, land, space, motion energy, man-made, structure, natural, dominating. If there's a dominating color, sometimes there might be a dancer in a bright red dress, and the bright red dress fills up half the screen. That would be a Gestalt then. So the Gestalts are other things than this. The key thing is the figs that I just told you about, the first impression Gestalts, are between 0 and 1. And you'll see how we've made the system easy to do that. And then the other is the ratio of elements A to the total. And then and that has to be between 0 and 1. And then that gets multiplied by 3.5. So you'll again be within 0 to 7. Now, notice here is you're ready to go. If you've put the element numbers on your transcript, you now go into each element and mark it as either, this one won't come up on my screen, but it gets marked as either a big A, a little a, or nothing. And the little a's are like half. If there's something which you're just not sure it's a match and yet it might be, you mark it as a little a. So go ahead and do that now. Yeah, Alan, there was a problem with the sound, but hopefully that didn't throw you guys in any way. And then the fig, when you click on it, what's going to come up are a series of numbers, 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, up to 0.9, and then a 1. So if you nailed the first impression gestalts, you give it a 1. But you might have gotten several of them. Most pictures have more than one gestalt in them, but you missed one, then you give yourself maybe a 0.9 or a 0.8. If you only missed one. If there are only 3 or 4 gestalts in there and you got 2 out of the 3, give yourself a 0.6 or a 0.7. But here is where the analysis and some intuitive judgment, I guess, comes in, because it's not absolutely clear. Well, you've got your own picture, so I can make this clearer by doing one. Okay, here's mine, which I happen to get. I didn't do a transcript, but notice there's a, little a. So I might arbitrarily put some numbers in here since I don't have a transcript, but just as an example. And I'm going to give it a low fig, but you can see the way the fig comes up. And then I go down further, and I've got the same thing with B. So again, I think you appreciate that. I didn't do a transcript, so this is strictly an example. And I'll give this a low one too, so my scores don't come up too high. And notice this click. Right here is where all the arithmetic is done for you after the B. And this is what you would get. So there are the 2 figs. It gives summary of the number of elements, and then it gives what HAG is giving as the confidence rankings, which I would then go back down here and average those. So or not average, 2.16 and 2.98. So the 2.98, 2.16, 2.98. Okay, so that's going to be pretty easy, because I now go back here and the confidence ranking brings up these numbers, and 2.16 for A is a 2, the closest, just getting the closest one. 2.98, I would get a 3, and I put in this is just a test for the webinar workshop group. But I know, remember I said 3.5 is the minimum for wageable, so this will definitely be a pass when I click submit. So how are we doing? This, in many ways, is the most challenging, but also in many ways the most important, in that it's from here where you're making an actual prediction of what we're going to see when we get to roulette. Is it going to be red or is it going to be black? And that's based on this analysis of getting a really good match to one or the other. Okay, so, okay, very good. Okay, A is done. You're working on B. Very good, Matt. Yeah. You know, it is interesting. The remote viewing sessions, like mine, typically take 7 to 9 minutes, let's say. You know, that's pretty short. But, you know, once I start doing it and put down the coordinate information just flowing, and a lot of it, you know, the ideogram is my body. The subconscious is doing my body like a doodle. And I just let it do its thing. And then I describe the A and B and then go on to the next one. And then sometimes I get words in a sketch. Now, I don't know, Marshall, how you did your judging. Um, this approach forces you to pay attention to every single element and pay attention to it with both of the photo sites that you get, possible targets. And so I recommend it, but some people are just basically going into the TARG system, which you can get from here. Just to show you, I just did it. And using these words, they come up with something where, you know, the 5 is really very good, 6 and 7 are even better. And 4 is okay, you know, 4 is good. You think your psychic stuff was working just fine. Let me know when any of you, maybe an old bee, has completed a session. Well, you don't know that. Oh, this was Frank. I mean, we don't know what the result is yet. Okay, very good. I will now, I'm going to submit mine too, so it'll be there, but hopefully you're all at this point getting ready to, and again, take your time. This is important and it takes time. And it takes time, gosh, should I just, that's not, sometimes they're easy. It's a clear match. Or nothing. And sometimes you need to think, should I give it a big B or a little b, that sort of thing. But I'm going to submit my session. And when you submit yours, you'll see that the comments come here. Mine was a pass on purpose. But also for the first time, we know that photosite A was randomly associated with red and the 0. And photosite B was associated with black. Okay, see, and it says that down here. And you know, that's relevant if you want to wager, even though it was a pass, you might have been leaning in one direction. Okay, but now what I want to do is show you something that I do as a group manager, and that is that I can see everything that you're doing. So we can take a little time to look at it and talk about it. So we're now at the prediction stage, and I am doing webinar workshop. Okay. And I can look, and I want to look at the one for today. And here, oh, okay. Oh, there are a lot of you. Oh, and some people that are in this group did not come to the webinar per se, but they made predictions. The one here that there's no history, so Krista must have been a first timer, but nevertheless it counts. Wow, you gave yourself a 7. I'm going to want to see that. But you can see I'm getting the predictions. And now let's do, Krista, She was side 1. And
Marty, it's Krista here. I didn't upload all my little pictures, but I've got them here.
you didn't need, you didn't upload your sketch?
Just my first page, because I'm working on a small notebook, which is really silly.
Okay, no, it is not silly at all.
But
Keeping track.
I did get, mountainous. I did
Wait,
get
hold
like
on.
mountain forever,
Wait.
always ski.
Krista, hold on. We haven't seen your pictures yet, but I can do that.
But I've only uploaded the very first one.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that, though.
Yeah. And I can upload the rest, but I don't know how to do that now.
No. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But let me just show you, because we might want to do with someone else.
Okay.
Here's Krista. You chose photo site A, so
Yeah.
let's so that was the one you chose, and
That's
now
correct.
I'll upload the first page as well. But hold on, I want to copy this so that I can show it with your transcript. So there you go. So I've got that.
So I've only uploaded the first page of my notes, but
I understand. No, I got
obviously
that.
there's
And let's
more.
do that
Yeah.
now. But let's look at that
Okay.
one.
All right.
Okay, and there it is.
It's literally just 3 words, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay, I understand why you were telling me about the other stuff. So the 3 words here were.
And then now, forever, always, and mountain and ski.
Oh, you said mountain.
Yes, I did.
That's very good. Forever, none of those I'd say mountain matches. And now do tell me about some of the other words, and did you do a sketch?
No, all my sketches were really just like idiogram sketches, but my wording was skiing, falling, snow, not too cold. Where I
Okay.
did go wrong is I had 3 people with goggles.
Right.
Downhill forever, mountain
Oh.
white down. Then I went a little bit off piste and I said, jump around upside down. Then I started with solid structure, cool ice, pinkish orange, violet.
You said cool
light.
ice, though. Okay, I just listening to this and being honest, I don't see a 7.
Okay.
But I do see something high, maybe a 5 or a 6.
All right.
I mean, a 7 is like right on, and you didn't miss anything. You see, you miss some, but nevertheless, you would get the same side. So okay, excellent. I think everybody learned a little bit from that one. Let me go see how we're doing with others, because then I'll make a group prediction, and then we'll actually do it. So we'll see if we've got a consensus from this group. Okay, so let me put this. Let me get rid of this and that. And here, we'll go back here. Let me renew it. Retry. See, this is the bottom line. So there was your red. Joe passed. I passed, of course. And here's another red. Here's a black. Now, you have to understand, since none of us are at 100%, this is always going to happen. We will have some people, and here's a 6, which is a red. Maybe we'll take a look at that. But notice these 5s are very good. We have 2 5s and 2 blacks and another red. So, as I say, I almost expect to get some on both possible photo sites. We call these things sides sometimes. You know, we have a red side and a black side. let's take a look at Plucky, because she gave it a 6. Though, as I say, by the time you get up to 5, 5, 6s, and 7s are all very, very good. I just don't have time to look at them all, but let's look at Plucky's. Though she's another red, but okay, let's look at Plucky. And some of you may still be doing yours, and please continue. This takes as long as it takes, and you don't want to rush it. Okay, so here's Plucky, and she was red as well. So this, oh, it looks like I did the transcript first. Oh, that was a quick one, huh? Is that your transcript? Did I do something wrong? Wait, let me go back. This doesn't look right. Here's Plucky. I want to do your photo site first anyway. Okay, that's interesting. Let me copy that. Okay. And now let's open up your transcript. Yeah, okay, that was it. Well, let me see if I can turn it. With this little, I must admit, Hag sometimes has problems. God, I wish there was a way to rotate this. Okay, I have to do it with Snagit. But let's do this one, and then we'll go on. So I'll do a capture. And then we'll open the editor, and we'll take the image and rotate clockwise. Okay, so there it is. We can even look at it here. And let me bring up that. Okay, so looks like I'm missing some. Oh, there must have been other pages that weren't included. Are you here? Let me see.
I'm here, Marty. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How did
Okay.
you give yourself a 6? There must be stuff I'm missing.
No, that's it. So I just I wrote down 3 words: roulette, black, slot channel.
Okay, so
That's
the
it.
black certainly worked. You wrote roulette. You got that from your subconscious about your target.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done this
Okay.
before. I thought I was
Okay.
trying to guess a
Okay.
roulette.
Okay.
Spin.
And slot channel is actually quite good. And so you use the Hag approach?
Yeah, I figured black and slot channel were hits.
Those were good hits. Generally, we like more than that, but I see what you did, and I can see giving it I can see Hag giving it a high score. I would like generally a little bit more, but that's
so
okay.
just to help myself calibrate in the future, I
Yeah,
would try to generate more descriptors, and
correct.
if they were but just with this would be more like a 3 or a 4 rather than a 6. Is that what you're saying?
No, these are quite good. You know, I mean, roulette came up for reasons having to do that it's in your mind. I would consider that to be an AOL or something like that. I almost wouldn't consider it at all. But black and slot channel are both right on.
But I thought my answer was photo B. This is my photo A. Am I getting that wrong?
I'm glad
I
we're
thought I was
talking. Let us see.
because photo B is like a red uh, Coast Guard ship with fire hoses spraying off, which is the exact
Opposite. No. You predicted. You predicted. No, you predicted the first one, photo side A, which is what you got such a good hit on,
Okay.
right? And that's what you
Okay.
put in. I'm sure you didn't get anything for photo site B.
No.
Oh, so that was really good. A bit unusual. We do like more. And if you just sort of stay there, your subconscious will give you more. And if you use the ideograms, one of the main reasons for the ideograms is it starts the flow. You know, you do a squiggle, you put the chord, you do a squiggle, and you write something for A and B. You know, A, how does it feel on the paper? And the motion, fast, slow. It's just amazing how stuff comes up. And then the B is almost like a guess of one sort. And then somehow words will start coming to you. But in this case, words came to you straight up. So you experiment a little bit. You said you're brand new at this, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think what you did was actually excellent. To get the two things you got were both right on. Okay, so we've got red, one red. Make sure I don't miss any countings. Two reds, three reds, four reds. I thought I saw another black. I see one black here. Oh, and there's a second black. Okay, so we got four reds and two blacks. So if I'm making a prediction, I'm going to go red. Makes sense, right? We got four reds, two blacks. Okay, so the prediction is red, and I will make that as group manager, and one of these. Oh, okay, wait. The group manager is right where I was. So let me get rid of this. Just get too many things open. Rid of that. So right here, again, I'm the group manager. I'm the only one that sees all of this, but I get to make a prediction. And notice it says photo site A, photo site B, and under that, red and black. So side one, because these words could be different. That's why we call them sides. But side one is red here. Webinar workshop. And I am now making a prediction. Now, this prediction will go to all of you. So when you're in our financial groups or sports groups, you will know what the group manager is doing. In fact, here, I'll even put a little note. 4 red, 2 black. Again, I tend to ignore passes for better or worse. So there we go. So I'll put that in. And this is junk for the group manager that you obviously don't have to worry about. Okay. So the next step is to do it. So let's do our European roulette, which with a little luck will still be open if they didn't time me out. We use a company called 5 Dimes, and we trust them. They're offshore. I think within another year or two, there'll be U.S. companies, but it doesn't matter. This is actually completely legal now, as far as I know. So since it was red, and that has to include 0, what I am going to do is bet $10 on the red directly, but I have to cover 0. I didn't mean that. Can I undo that? Damn. I just wanted to put a $1 on that.
Click the X. I think you can clear.
Ah, beautiful. Beautiful. And I'll put a $1 there since it pays, 36 times rather than even. Okay, and I cleared everything. So let me go here and here. Okay, so we've played the wager, right? I've got $10 on there. I've covered 0. And now we'll spin. Ah! I was afraid they did that. Why didn't they tell me before, right? Okay. We're all getting ready, weren't we?
Skip the game, dude.
So let me just, I can get it again, of course, but let me see where that is. 5 dimes. Let's see if I'm still here, or it might have even expired here. No, they're showing a balance. So we want table games and European roulette. I hope you guys are having fun in spite of the, before that works, I have to transfer funds. So I'm just going to transfer $20. That's what I did last time. They keep the sports betting separate. Okay, that was accepted. Now let's try the roulette. You can see I only do this once a month. Okay, we're there. And we'll take $1 and put it there. Our $5 there and there. Are you ready?
Yes.
Round around it goes. Why? Black. So the one person will get a hit and the other 4 will get a miss and the passes will get passes, but that's the way it goes. This is a learning experience.
Jade had black.
Yeah. Okay. So we're done with this. I mean, here it is. I bet had I not been timed out, it would have been red. That's a joke. That's a joke. Okay. So let's now go back to my presentation. So we did the spinning. The output was black, and now it's time to do feedback. But first I need to, as the manager, send all of you the emails. So I go back here now. So you can see what goes behind the scenes when you're in one of our other groups. So this is group manager prediction forms. Now we're doing the outcome. And the outcome we wanted for webinar, choose your group and leave all blank. Let's make sure, yep, European roulette. Webinar workshop. Okay, so red was side 1. Side 2 is what actually happened. So I put in side 2. Webinar workshop. Well, black was outcome. And the prediction, oh, okay, wait, no, I did that too. I think I did that too soon. So wait, let's do it again. Webinar works. Where side 2. Was outcome. Notice I'm not saying anything about the fact that I personally, as a group manager who just spent, $11, I don't want to do anything negative about that here, because it just is what it is. And it turns out the attitude is best for everybody. There's side 2. Okay, so this, you should now all get an email. You should all get a feedback email. In fact, I can show you mine, because that's where you're going to get your personal feedback. So look in your email box. I have a lot of things open. Where is... There it is. Okay, so there's my email. And webinar workshop. And there's my link. So all of you will get the same thing. And then you just click the link. Again, from the operational standpoint, it's very simple. You have to put in your email address, since your coordinate and your target is unique to you. And now if I click, I'm not going to click, because if I click, you all will see my feedback, and I don't want that. I want you to click and see your feedback and get that first impression of the gestalt and all of that good stuff. So I am not going to click. You click. Now, almost universally, you will know. You would have written down, for example, if you predicted red someplace, you would have written red. Right now, you probably just remember. The passes are passes. The screen that you see with your feedback has a place for notes on it as well. So you should put notes about what you're feeling and stuff like that. But I always recommend, whether it's a hit, miss, or pass, that you, and I prefer a new sheet of paper. Some people do it on the same sheet. But let's go to a new sheet of paper, write feedback and the coordinate on there, and then do the session you sort of wished you had done, but a remote viewing type of session. It's not a tracing. If the picture were an Eiffel Tower, don't you wish you just had one sketch that had that and maybe some hash marks for the Eiffel Tower? Something very simple, because that's typically what we get at the subconscious. If you do 20-page sessions like some people do who were in the military and have taught the full approach, then you actually can get extraordinary details. But for us, we just wanted enough to distinguish between A and B. So that's what this does count towards your stats because your name is in there. And let's see, I don't know if there are any questions. Yes, black was B. And one of you got a hit. That one, basically the hit, it's just celebration time. You just feel really good about it and notice all the matches, but then do another quick session, as I said, and add something to it. You know, next time I wouldn't mind if I also got this, and next time I have something similar. You know, if there was a dominating color you missed, focus on the color, share it, say it out loud, write it, do things to start teaching your subconscious. You guys are working out a communication channel system and feel really happy. And, you know, at the ego intellectual level, absolutely, but also deeply at the subconscious level. And as deep as you can get. And then have an M&M. It turns out Ingo used to throw M&Ms, give M&Ms to people that he did something really well. So the whole idea of the hit is to celebrate and be really happy. Now, what do you do as in this case, and this may be why it happened in some way, is it's all about learning, whether it was a pass or a miss. We never, ever stop learning. That's one of the great things about ARV. There are always lessons to be learned. And in the one case we did where you had 2 great words, I thought that was terrific. In many ways, it shows that you're psychic, because how did you get those, right? You got those before you saw the picture. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but that was the one where all you had was black and slot-like, I think. And both matched. But, you know, maybe the thing to learn is I'd like to do more next time. I liked a little more formality to it, but it really felt good that I was at least psychic. You know, this stuff really works. You know, say some positive, good stuff to you and know your sub is learning from all of this. And there's just nothing wrong with this. People who've been around for a very long time are still getting non-hits. And again, do another transcript. You now have the truth point in front of you. If nothing else, this is giving you practice. Do another remote viewing type transcript, even having seen it. Now, don't look at it anymore. You know, on a blank sheet of paper, though, trying to get the sense of not getting it from memory, but getting it from your subconscious, which may be using your memory. But you know what I'm saying? Do a very fast session to get the essence of the actual target. This comes from a previous webinar where I talked a lot more about hits and misses and other strategies. And when people get into a guff about the misses, and the idea in the moment is to not do that, but if you're at that stage, what do? Well, here was the suggestion. You've got like a little devil. You see down here? This is one of several slides. This is like a little part of you, a negative part of you, that is whispering in your ear, miss, 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 all I'm getting is misses, I hate misses. When you're aware of things like that, like as soon as the black became known to you and as part of your feedback session, in that moment, give it love. Love your misses. Say it's all part of the process to get me to become a really good ARVer. That's our love strategy. Love conquers all. And that's just so good in so many ways. The The worst I can say is it can't hurt. And I think there are reasons to believe it'll help, and it certainly does help. But also, you've now brought love into your being. And when we pass to the other side, to the non-physical, aren't you going to want to look at your life and have as much love in there as possible? So doing ARV, even when you get misses, bring in the love. So that's the best strategy that we have. It's all balanced between the mind and the heart. And just don't energize your negatives, just love them. Okay, questions, comments? Getting ready to wrap it up maybe, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Well, thank you, Frank. And those of you that did get non-hits, I try not to use the word misses anymore. Language, I guess, is part of this. I hope you really feel that you've learned something from all of this and from the session. What you're doing is absolutely incredible when you come down and really think about it. It's a kind of precognitive telepathy. Here you are, a remote viewer at one time, and you are gathering information from your own mind. That's why it's like telepathy. It's not a different person, but as they say, you know, as every moment goes by, you are becoming a somewhat different person. But here you are gathering information from a different time, using your psychic abilities, which involve this higher power, your subconscious, and you're sharing that information. And it's available to you from your subby. That's a nice, friendly way. Sometimes I will even call it the submerged consciousness. Since your consciousness is only in the moment, everything else is submerged, or a higher self or whatever. And know this at a very deep or high level. People use so many different words for this, but it amounts to the same thing, that you can just let this target information flow into your consciousness. And just have a long-term trust. Everything that we're doing here only makes sense if you do it over the long term. Onesies mean nothing in this business, right? You want to know that you've got a psychic ability which eventually becomes reliable at a reasonably good level. Now, some people actually don't even want that. They just like playing with this because they see these really good sessions. They get information from their subconscious. They enjoy doing it. There's a lot of reasons for getting involved in this, but I believe as long as you're enjoying it and having fun, stay involved. If it ever gets so you're not enjoying it, you probably should leave and spend your time doing something else. If you can't get to where you're feeling good about it, feeling positive, getting, love from time to time, or other positive feelings, leave. And it's this higher self and the universe of collective consciousness. And now, for the first time, and I did this as I'm preparing this. I always like to prepare these because I always stretch myself to go into an area where I can learn something new. And the lowercase God, that was what came out of my deep thinking about this. I want for all of us to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. The greatest wealth is health. Please stay healthy, especially in these times. But money wealth, as long as it's shared, is really a good thing. Nothing wrong with money. And I think sometimes a lot of the misses come because the money issue comes up in various ways, which I won't go into now. I also wish you all love, wisdom, experience of beauty and joy. The end of all wisdom is love, love, love. Beauty and things exist in the mind which contemplates them. But the feeling of beauty is beautiful. Only love gives us the taste of eternity. The key is to stay in the moment. Joy is found in the moment. The inner beauty. You know, this inner moment, I said some, but there's so much more that can be said about it. For example, yes, you only feel the joy in the moment. You can plan for the future, but just know you're doing the planning in the moment, and you're in fact working to actualize the future that you want. It's not quite the same as precognition, but there is an analogy there because you're planning a wedding ceremony. You're thinking about the future in the now, and you know what? That future will actualize as you're planning it. But recognizing that just seems important. And then inner beauty. Wisdom is knowing I am nothing. Love is knowing I am everything. And between the two, my life moves. That's more like poetry. Love has reasons which reason cannot understand. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Joy, share it, feel it, and the true heart's longing, love, wisdom, and freedom of being. Okay, thank you. I couldn't do this if you weren't there, and I do enjoy my part of this. So if there are any questions or comments, let me know. Yeah, I see people have to run. These things do go a long time. I'm trying to keep them to 2.5 hours, but I hope you got something from it. Any final comments, questions? Okay, I will take that to be no, and I will be able to end this now. Take care, stay healthy, and keep precogging.